I think it should be coming up as well now, your video. It's just a black screen at the moment. And then I think you should be able to share your screen as well, Glenn. Now?
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant. I can see you there now, Glenn. That's fine. It's just come on then.
I share my presentation.
So for those, again, who are watching on Facebook, can you please leave your questions into the comment section as Glenn is going through his presentation. Also for those on Zoom, if you could do the same in the Q&A facility, as I said before, then we can get straight into answering all your questions. I can see that all coming up now, Glenn. Oh, I can just see half a screen at the moment. I don't know if that's just on my screen.
Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I think it's gone full screen. Oh. It seems to only have half a screen again.
Let me try and...
Are you on the internet to do this? On the actual, on the PowerPoint app, Glenn?
Yeah, I am. I'm just
right, should be okay, I think.
To disconnect my second screen. Does that come up right now?
It's still got a bit of the screen cut off there. I'm not sure why.
Let me try and reshare it once more.
That's fine. Just want to say those that are watching as well, for the resources, if you want to use any resources for the competition, go to leadersaward.com for that as well. I can see about 3/4 of it now, Glenn. I don't know if it's gradually coming on.
That's bizarre.
Let me just check if it looks like that. I don't know. Is it the input, the HDMI, that's doing it? Do you think?
I'm literally just on my laptop now. I've disconnected all my recording. This worked like 2 hours ago.
I know. We did test it, didn't we? And it worked then. I'm not sure why it's not now. It's still doing the same, I think. I don't know if you want to.
Can you see it like that? If I do that, is that?
Do you want to quickly just send me your PowerPoint, Glenn, and then we can. I can share.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
I could share it from my side, couldn't I then?
Absolutely.
So don't worry. There's always a kind of few technical issues with doing things from home.
I'll just send that across now.
I think it should come through in a second. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll share it from this side, Glenn. And then obviously when you want me to go further on throughout the PowerPoint, just let me know.
Yeah, no worries.
It's not come through at the moment.
Right, sending.
Don't worry, on the recording, we'll be able to cut this little bit out at the beginning anyway, Glenn, so don't worry.
On the outtakes.
Yeah, exactly. Just still
Right,
wait.
that's just left my outbox now, so that should come through in a second.
Oh, has it? Brilliant. Not come through just yet. Let's just see.
It's quite a big
Wait a
file, I
second.
think.
Yeah, is that why it's taking a while? Do you want to just try it one more time? See if it'll.
Yeah, let's have a go.
Have another try. See, it seemed to do it at the beginning part then, and then as you went to full screen, I think it cut half it off again, which I'm not sure why that's happening.
Nothing.
No, still waiting for the email. On that. Yeah, it's still got half the screen there. Oh, I think yours is it's just come through now, so I'll just download it onto mine. Right, I'll put that up now for you, Glenn. Let me see. There we go. Can you see that now, Glenn?
That looks very good. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So whenever you're ready, Glenn, off you go.
Right. Thanks, Alex, and thanks everybody for bearing with us there. So a few technical problems. My name's Glenn Mitchell. I'm a senior project engineer at Network Rail. My background is in signalling, so working with the signaling that sort of maintain the safety of trains, make sure they don't crash into each other. Also, make sure we can run the timetable that we want to run as well. So a lot of people don't realise that the timetable is actually constrained by how the signalling is laid out. I also do a little bit of work on electrical engineering as well, so sort of power distribution, mostly for signalling, funnily enough. So what made me an engineer? I think if you just carry on, Alex, the picture should appear. Thanks. So I've always been interested in the railway. I think it was a destiny almost that I was going to be working on the railway in some shape or form. Originally I wanted to be a train driver. I think a lot of young lads do, to be fair. A couple of pictures of me there doing sort of slide please, Alex. Oh, I think we skipped one there. There you go. So yeah, another thing that got me into engineering, I really enjoy building things, making things, or figuring things out. Just little pictures there, things like the Lego and the Playmobil. I had quite a lot of that when I grew up. I just used to have a massive imagination. I'd make really big things in the bedroom, and I'd spread out all over the floor, much to my mum's disgust when she'd walk in. And I'm sure a lot of parents have done it. I don't know if you kids have done it, but if you stand on a Lego brick or something like that, it really hurts. So that used to upset my mum no end. But yeah, that's another thing that sort of led me into the career I'm in today. I'm quite an organised person, I like to think, which is quite important if you're working in engineering. So a couple of pictures just there, a couple of charity concerts I've organised with some friends of mine in the photo there. We raised a little bit of money for charity. We had really good fun, and I really enjoyed putting them together and just seeing the end result of that. And it's no different to what I do on a daily basis, really. I help teams that organise things. We make projects happen, make the railway a little bit better, and it's really good to see the end result of these things. School-wise, I've had a fairly straightforward education, really. I did school in Woking, which is where I grew up. The important subjects, none of us will admit to enjoying it, is maths. That's a very important subject. I absolutely hated maths, and it's one of the most important things you will need for doing engineering, unfortunately. And you probably don't really think of it until you actually use some of the things that you do in maths, and you think, oh, well, X's and Y's and finding X and what's Y, and you think, well, I'm never going to use this in life. And, well, you don't, not the stuff you do in maths, but it does teach you something, the logic, the process, how you figure out a problem. And I've found a lot of the time I have a lot of X's in when I'm at work, a lot of things I don't know that I need to work out. Obviously, science, sort of physics, especially for my job, electricity, things like that, that's a really important one. And again, it's a lot of logical things in science, and English is very important as well. Being able to write and communicate with people, because I have to talk to a lot of people every day, is very, very important. So then when I finished school, I did go on to sixth form college to study A-levels, and three very different subjects I studied that I finished for A-levels. So electronics is the obvious one. That's quite relevant to what I do now. I really enjoyed that. And so the picture's not mine there. That's the sort of thing that we were doing, making up little circuits and things like that. Business studies, you'd be surprised, but it has really helped my career because I have to deal with budgets as well. I have to think, well, are we doing the right thing with the money we've got? Are we making the right technical choice? Is what we're going to install the right thing? Are we using the right equipment? Should we be doing something better? And that's been a massive help for me. And finally, German. So unless I went to work in Germany, it's not really relevant, but I found the subject interesting, so that was just me. And then after college, I went to university. I went to Sheffield Hallam University, which was an absolutely wonderful city to study in. And I studied quite a specific course in railway engineering. So that's kind of naturally led into the sort of work I do now. But university isn't really a must for getting into engineering. There's plenty of different routes you can take, so you can start just training from the ground up. Really, there's things like apprenticeships and that you can do straight after school, which are really good ways to get into it if you're not more academic. If you don't particularly like studying, sitting in a classroom, you can do a lot more practical courses these days. So yeah, there's plenty of different routes into engineering. So moving on to what I've done in my career. So the first job I did was as a signalling designer. So a designer, there's two types of design. So there's the what we call schemes design. So that's designing the layout. Like I said at the start, signalling sort of determines how many trains you can run, how many trains you can put in the timetable. And the little drawing on the bottom right-hand side of the screen there is just an example of that. So the red and green are the things that have been changed. And then there's the work that I did, which was what we call works design. So that's designing circuits, actually wiring things together, thinking how it's all going to work to make sure that the signalling is safe. Because the main thing the signalling does, it prevents train crashes. You know, the train driver sees a red light, the train stops. And we have other safety systems that we wire into that to prevent accidents from happening. Just a couple of photos from my job. So the box with a big trunk of wires coming off the top of it, as we call it, looks like a bit of a mess. That was an aid that we put in for one of the jobs I did to aid the people that tested it. So the switches there would operate circuits while they weren't connected on the ground, so that saved a lot of time. And the one on the left was during the same job. That's at London Bridge, so that's quite an old picture now, but that was taken during one of the massive jobs I worked on, where I helped with some of the circuits for the new platforms there, where those two trains had just run into. They were the first trains into that platform. So that was quite a proud moment almost to stand on the roof of the signal box and watch these trains come into this platform that I knew I'd helped done my little bit for. After about 5 years working as a designer, I went to a company called RSHB, and they sit over the whole industry. So not just when looks after the track, signalling, power supplies, all the infrastructure that you see when you're on the train. RSHB sits above everything there, and it's not really tied to any specific other company or anything like that, but they kind of oversee the rules that we work to as an industry. So they're called standards. They basically set out how we should do things, the best way of doing things, and they have these groups of experts there that you can actually contact for help if you're a professional working for someone like Network Rail or one of the train operating companies. So I worked in their signalling team, and I'd work on projects to update standards so that they were easier for people to use, and I would help responding to questions that people had asked us if we had opinions on how things could be done. So I learned quite a lot doing that. And now for the past sort of 2-3 years, I've been working in my current job. So what I do at the moment, I get involved in renewals projects. So I work in the renewals team. So we replace worn out equipment, basically. So old signals, old point machines, things like that they used quite a lot on a daily basis. They do only last for so long before they wear out and they need replacing. And we also do some minor enhancements. We make things a little bit better. We add new equipment, like the signal on the left there. That was a new signal that we helped put in because where the train was, that's at London Victoria, the driver couldn't see the signal because it was on the other side of the track, and the front of their train was basically in the way and stopped them seeing it. So we put that in so that the train driver can see the signal now, which is really helpful for them. And I now get involved quite early in projects in that. Like I said earlier, I'm helping make the decisions. Are we doing the right thing? Is this project going to be delivered for the right amount of money? Because we're using taxpayers' money. We don't want to be wasting that. People earn their money and pay tax. We don't want to spend more than we need to. Or can we do a little bit more now and save more money in the future? Are we making things safer for people? Are we getting people off the track because we'll put in a signal like that which has got LED lights, so they don't need anybody to maintain them anymore? So that's one shift less where someone has to go on the track, which is a really dangerous place to go and work. And then the picture there of me on the right, that's actually underneath the signaler's lever frame. So an old-fashioned lever frame where you would see the signalman pulling levers to make the signals change. And that was a job we did there. I got to go underneath it and go and have a look at some of the wiring, which was very interesting. So why do I enjoy being an engineer? Well, the biggest thing is variety for me. It's certainly never a dull moment. It's always interesting. There's always something going on. I get involved with a lot of different things. So these are from various stages of my career. So one when I was training there on the top, that was working in a track renewal, rolling out that big bit of mat, which is like a big piece of felt, and it actually stops the weeds coming up through the ballasts, which is the stones that you see on the top of the track. So just to get involved with that, see how that works. Another one of myself there on a level crossing, helping hold the barrier up while they change the motor that makes the barriers go up and down. And then the most recent one of me actually getting out and doing something physical was on the same picture on the last slide. That is in the same job there, helping change the wiring a little bit to make the diagram for the signalman a bit better because it was old and needed replacing. And, as I said, it's interesting, but it's also got its challenges. So a couple of the less finer moments when I've been out and about. So the picture on the left there, one example of a failure that caused delays to trains on a day. That was right back when I started and I was on my university course, and I spent some time with the team that goes out and deals with failures when they happen. And as you can see, the back of that box there is a little bit burnt. It's got all dust, and what had happened was one of them little boxes at the front had actually exploded, and that was caused by somebody's litter, a piece of foil that was presumably a sandwich wrapper or something like that had been dropped. It landed on the rails. And one of them was the live rail that gives the power to the trains, and the signalling circuit goes through the other rails. So the difference in the power in those two rails is huge. So the signalling equipment that runs on a much lower power than the train supply didn't like being connected to the train supply, and it exploded. So that was a bit of a problem. And the one on the right, a couple of years ago, one of the level crossing improvement jobs I worked on, I found out the day after that one of the people we had digging a new cable route under the road, they had a hole dug in the road, and as they were digging the hole through the road, they hit a water main, which, as you can see, was quite spectacular to watch, but it's not very good because it disrupted the local residents, so they couldn't get water from their tap for a couple of hours while the water board came and fixed it. And I get to work with lots of different people. So there's that job on the left, there's a huge variety of people that did different roles there. That was a huge, so all of that track that the guys are stood on there was replaced. The whole thing was lifted out using that massive crane that's behind them and replaced. And it takes a lot of people to make that sort of thing happen, and a lot of people out to go out and actually do the work, to do all the lifting and the screwing the bolts in and knocking all the clips in that hold everything together. It's a really big job, and they're all different characters. They all offer something different and make the workplace a really good place to be. And then the little competition I went to last year on the right with a few guys from sort of my area, everybody in the photo there does something different. So there's myself and my boss there on the left, and then there's a couple of guys from project managers. There's a communications person there who does sort of communications with local communities, electrical engineer. One of them is what's called a sponsor, so he makes sort of business cases for why we spend money, that we're spending money on the right things as well. Yes, it's a really good mix of people to work with. And I've been to a lot of different places. A few more mugshots of me from my travels I've had on various different trips to go and see how things are done in other places. So there's one on the top there in Spain underneath the train to go and look at some of the more new, really, really modern signalling equipment that's actually fitted to the bottoms of trains and go and see how that works. I went to Scotland there on the bottom left to go and see radio signalling, where there's no cables along the side of the track. It's all done using radios, which was fascinating for me. I went to a steam railway in Norfolk to go and have a look at how some modern day safety systems have been fitted to old steam engines so that they're still allowed to run the main line to go and take people out on day trips to nice places. And then finally, one of the highlights of my trips away was to a rail research conference in Italy, and we all got to go out for a nice dinner at the Royal Palace in a place called Monza. So I dressed up very smart for that one. And thank you for listening. If there's any questions, please do let me know.
Thank you, Glenn, for sharing that with us today. I know we had a few technical difficulties before, but I think that was a fantastic presentation. So thank you for delivering that for us. What I'll do is I'll make sure people can see my screen as well. And I don't know if we can share your video as well there, Glenn.
Yep.
So we can just see you answering the questions. So the first one I just wanted to ask you, Glenn, and for those who are watching, please can you send us in your questions? You can do it in the comment section on Facebook or the Q&A on Zoom. The first one I'd like to ask you, Glenn, have you been working at home at the moment during kind of COVID-19, and how have you found that?
I have been working at home since March. So basically, as soon as we all got told we had to stay at home as much as we could, I've been able to work at home. Initially, I did find it quite hard to adjust because I was used to going out and seeing people. And now we've really got into using a program called Microsoft Teams, which we use more for meetings internally. And it's good to see my colleagues and have a chat. And now I'm actually quite used to it. And I'm not too bothered about going back into the office, to be honest. But I have been out on a couple of site visits as well. So I've not been indoors the whole time. More recently, I have been able to get out and go and sort of have a look at some of the things that we're working on.
Because we've got a question that's come through here on Facebook, Glenn. So it says, did you always like trains when you were a kid? I know you had a few pictures on your presentation, but did you always enjoy trains or in general? Did you want to work for Network Rail? Did you feel like when you were younger?
I did. I absolutely loved trains when I was young. So I I always remember when I was young, there was a park near, not far from where I lived, that my mum and dad used to take me to a lot, and we'd have there was a big playing field, and we used to play there. And then the highlight for me was always walking up the lane, and there was a footbridge at the top, and we'd always stand on there and wave at the trains, and the drivers would blow the horns, and we'd be waving, and we'd all be really happy that the drivers had blown the horns at us. I think that just kind of stuck with me. That I just used to love it, and we'd travel up to go and see my family in the northeast on the train, and it was just really exciting for me as sort of a 4, 5, 6 year old to go on the train. So as I said, I think a long time when I was younger, I did want to be a train driver. But yeah, as I've progressed, I've become really interested in the engineering side of it, and it's surprised me. But yeah, I'm absolutely glad I've done it, to be honest.
So were you always kind of building and creating things when you were growing up?
Yeah, that was it. I was building sort of little worlds in my imagination out of Lego and Playmobil in my bedroom there, and I had a big imagination for that.
So out of all the kind of roles that you've done and all the job roles that you listed in your presentation, is there any that kind of surprised you that you didn't think you would have got on or gone into beforehand?
I think the design role that I started with was a surprise because I'd always thought, as I'd gone through my university course, I always thought projects is what I want to do. I'd like to work in projects. And I went into design thinking, oh, I'll give it a go. I'll see how it goes. And the fact that I ended up staying there 5 years and I really enjoyed it. And it was a really good place to learn as well. I learned far more there than I think I would have done had I gone into another job then. So that's really benefited me personally as well. And it was just excellent to learn so much technical knowledge in those 5 years, which I still use every day at the moment.
So the next question we've got, Glenn, is asking, I know you said it's quite a dangerous job kind of going onto the tracks, but is this something that you enjoy, working actually physically on the tracks?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I am stuck in the office most of the time or home at the moment. But yeah, going out on site and actually seeing what we're going to be doing, to go and talk to the people that will do the building works, that will be doing the wiring and things like that, and even going into a signal box and talking to the signaler that will use the equipment that we're putting in and finding out what do you want out of it, what will make your life better, which ultimately, if you're making someone who's working the railway better, their life better, it will make the running of the railway better for the people that pay their fares to come and use the train. So that just to see those little improvements that ultimately make the railway better for the people that use it, that's really big for me.
And as you obviously, when did you say you started, Glenn, within Network?
So my first full-time job in Network Rail, I started in 2010. So it'll be about 10 years ago next month, I think, or the month after. But my university course was actually through Network Rail as well, so sort of on and off since 2008.
Yes. So this question is asking, have you seen kind of a big increase since then in the amount of technology that's used, especially in your job?
I think as I started it, we were starting to see sort of changes in more so the equipment that you would see from the train. So things like the signals, we've moved a lot to LED signals, as I said, because they just save so much time and effort and money as well in maintaining them. Because if you replace something like that doesn't need any maintenance anymore, you can send the people to go and maintain sets of points instead, which they are prone to failure more than signals because of just there's more moving bits, there's more bits that can go wrong. In terms of the black box stuff that sits in equipment rooms that you never see, that's the changes are coming, I think. So I think I will probably get to be part of that as part of my career before I retire, hopefully. And we'll move to more equipment that shows the driver a display in the cab rather than signals next to the track that they have to read and things like that. So we're kind of moving into a far more modern set of equipment.
But yeah, so like you said, it is coming a lot more, obviously a lot more modern, a lot more technology now. So, the next question on Facebook we have is, do you feel like engineering or working Network Rail in general, can anyone do it? Is there lots of roles out there for anyone?
Absolutely. There is a Network Rail as a business. The variety of roles is huge. So there's what I do, which is sort of more of an office job, but it is quite technical. You've got the guys that actually go out on the track on shifts 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're there. If it's raining, if it's snowing, wind, whatever, they're there. They are physically repairing things, maintaining things, keeping the railway going. You've got signallers who are there literally making the signals change, keeping the trains running. There's controllers who have to make decisions and say, no, we need to cancel that train because it's late or because there's someone falling ill on the train. We have to stop and send it back. And then there's all the other things as well. So there's environmental people we have in the route to make sure that when there's construction works, we're not doing any damage to the environment. We have, say, there's the sponsorship people that they sort of make sure that we're investing money as we should be, make sure that we're not spending money on projects that are pointless. There's other technical people that sort of specify what they want. They tell us what equipment they want that we're going to go and install. What else? I can keep going. So we've got designers, they're internal and in other companies as well that we use, that we work with. And there's so many non-technical roles in the company. So communications teams that send us staff communications because we're a big company. There's something like 35,000 employees that need to be told what's going on. And then it's not just signalling, it's track, it's electrification, it's civil engineering, so bridges, buildings, earthworks, the big embankments that you see the track on. It's just almost endless.
Yeah, so vast, isn't it? Kind of
it's huge.
What you can go into and the next question we've got is quite a fun one. So, what is kind of your favourite train, Glenn? Do you have a favourite train at all, or maybe one?
My favourite train is so it's quite a famous one. It's called the Intercity 125. I'd have to say. I always remember as a very young boy, I was probably 5 or 6. I sound so old. I remember standing on the platform on the station when we've been to visit my granddad in the northeast, and just the noise of the train as it pulled out was just unbelievable. And I think that was the sort of thing that used to excite me, these big machine making all this noise, and the fact that it's, and you say, oh, I'm going to get on that, it's going to take me towards home at 125 miles an hour. Yeah, you can't do that in a car. And that was sort of the original. It was I think it's the world's fastest diesel train, sort of in passenger service. And there's still a few left today on the network. That's how long it's lasted, and they've been around since sort of the 60s, 70s, I think. So, yeah, that was my favourite one growing up.
Has your kind of excitement kind of dwindled a little bit now that you work with trains all the time, or do you still get excited when you see the more rare trains about?
I think what makes me excited has probably changed rather than dwindled. So where I used to be, I'd get really excited about trains. Now I get really excited about sort of signalling and operations, and how we're making the railway being able to take more people, and how we're making things a bit faster and a bit more reliable.
So, yeah, so a bit of a shift, like you said, then. In
what
you find now exciting. I think obviously through what you do for your job.
Definitely still enthusiastic about the railway as an industry, though.
So the last question we've got here, Glenn, is: have you got any kind of tips or advice or anything that you've learned along the way in your career that you'd like to share with the participants listening?
The most important thing is, I would say, and it's a cliche, is just go for something you enjoy. If you think you will enjoy it, don't be afraid to try something new. If it's close, like I say I did with the design, that was a real eye-opener for me. But yeah, just if you think there's something you would enjoy doing as a career, just go for it. Go for anything you think that you're interested in. And I think it's important to be interested in what you want to do. So it's like picking a job and saying, oh yeah, I want to do that because I know I'll earn loads of money. But actually, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, I think it's pointless. I absolutely love what I do, the end products of what I do. And I think it's quite lucky that I can do that.
I just want to say a big thank you, Glenn, for taking time out of your day to do this. I'm sorry we had a little bit of
that's fine.
with the PowerPoint, but we got it sorted in the end. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed doing that and answering those questions there today.
That's great. Thanks for having me, and I hope people found it interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And if for those who are watching, thank you for joining us as well and sending in your questions. I hope you've been inspired to take on the Leaders Award competition and start designing some of your own inventions, and use our resources on our website, leadersaward.com. Thank you for joining us again today. Bye, everyone. Bye, Glenn.
Bye, thanks.